Would like to call the Board of Zoning Appeals to order. And first order of business is approval of minutes of the previous meeting, which was August 2nd.
I make a motion to approve those minutes.
I second. Motion is approved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. The approval of the minutes of the August 2nd meeting. I'm passing around a presentation, proof of publication. And while the board members have a chance to review that, we'll wait just a moment. John Schultz and Dave Haggard are both expressed their regrets they're unable to attend this evening. Do I have a motion to make the publication a matter of record? I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
The proof of publication is now a matter of record. This is the organizational meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals for 2017. I'm going to turn the meeting over to the city attorney for the election of officers.
Okay. This time, you're required to elect a chairperson, vice chairperson, and Sharon, I believe, is the recording secretary. So currently, Greg serves as chairperson. I think Steve is the vice chair. So at this time, the floor is open for nominations. You can nominate existing officers in as a group, or you can nominate individuals. So the floor is open for nominations at this time.
Before we go ahead, I would like to not be the vice chair, but it's kind of like maybe Bill will, but if, yeah, I don't know how you do that if somebody's not here.
Well, they're on the board and they can be nominated, so that's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, I would.
Bill, are you willing to
I nominate Greg as chairman and Mr. Schultz as vice.
And Sharon as the recording secretary?
Yes.
Okay, so Greg has been nominated as chair, John Schultz, vice chair, Sharon Brown as a recording secretary. Are there any other nominations? Or is there a second to that nomination?
I second that.
Steve? Okay, are there any other nominations? Okay, is there a motion to close nominations?
So move.
Steve?
Second.
Second, Bill. All those in favor of closing nominations signify by saying aye.
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 All those in favor of electing Greg as chairperson, John Schultz as vice chairperson, Sharon Brown as the recording secretary signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Greg, we're showing your ayes on both of those because
Yes.
we have to have
Yes.
3 votes.
Yes. Aye.
Okay. All right. Congratulations, and I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, next order of business is to appoint an attorney for the Board of Zoning Appeals. Tim Baker, city attorney, has done that job in the past. Do I hear a motion for appointment of attorney for the Board of Zoning Appeals? Yes.
So moved.
Go ahead.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Tim, you're retained as the attorney for the board.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Do we have any old business for the BZA this evening? Any new business?
The only thing I'd like for you guys to kind of take a look at, and we'll look into it, see what other communities do when we get some time. But these reader board signs that churches and schools and stuff are putting up, we've been getting a few complaints about the background, bright and things are at night. adjacent to residential property. It's somewhat annoying to some people, I guess, so. I don't know if other communities regulate it somehow, you know, maybe they could still have the reader board stuff up there, no background light, dusk to dawn or something, I don't know how they work that. But I don't know if there's, you know, if we can even regulate them that way, or, I'd say we could probably put in there what we want, but them are bright. Well, you come down Jackson Street, come in town at night, and this one down here on 3rd Street going, it's bright.
I live out in Anthony Wayne Meadows, and when I'm coming in Monroe Street, at times I've thought the one at St. Joe's School was actually a police vehicle,
Yeah.
that the lights are bright.
At night, they're bright.
Yeah.
That's what, you know, and if they still want messages across there, I don't think the red lettering is the red, they don't have the background lighting to it. Yeah, it's bright.
Aren't they required to come in front of the BTA to put a sign up?
Well,
Or not?
not if it meets all the requirements, you know?
They're just not supposed to be flashing.
Right. Close to signal or something like that, but yeah, it's like, yeah, that's how bright they are, right?
Is that because there's no LED?
But I think the technology has really affected that.
Yeah.
The only discussion I can remember in the past had to do with the message boards with the chase lights across the top,
Yeah.
and whether those were allowed within a certain distance of an intersection because of having a yellow light on it, that it would be confused with a traffic signal.
Yeah, with an arrow, kind of like that arrow, yeah. So, just something that,
People complaining because it's a traffic hazard or just kind of a nuisance in the
I
neighborhood?
haven't heard many on the traffic hazard, it's just that it's so bright.
The one at the, at Barb's Church, on
Yeah.
3rd and Jackson, the house directly catty-cornered, that one-story brick home. That man evidently has some disabilities or something or other. He emailed and asked that the sign be turned off earlier, that it would, that one, depending on how they had it set up, sometimes it like lit up his house. He said, I have darkening drapes and whatever, and it says it still lights my bedroom up. So Barb and their committees
They,
have,
since then, we have dimmed it up at certain, in the evening, and shut it off at 8 o'clock in the evening, so it shouldn't bother anyone sleeping or anything.
Well, it's good to hear that
Yeah.
you guys are tackling it on your own.
Yeah, we've talked to them and they have taken, you know, taken care of
But
it.
there's other incidences
Well, you just...
possibly.
Yeah. I just want to kind of...
That's the only one I can think of on 3rd Street.
No, St. Joe's got that one.
There's one on that one there too, at the,
Yeah, that's a little smaller one. Yeah, that one on 7th Street there. Yeah. Right, across from Baker Plumbing, for that little church that sits there on 7th.
Mm.
Yeah, I think the technology has overtaken us a little bit, or at least overtaken the ordinances.
Wayne had this issue a couple of years ago, out there on 930, near the Coliseum. That, I was thinking that I remember reading it.
I don't recall that.
I don't know what they did.
So what would the procedure be? You would research it, make a recommendation to city council, and city council would act upon it?
Well, or, yeah, we just have to get it amended in our ordinance, something that, you know, in the sign ordinance, it says that, you know, if you put up those type of signs, that we got to keep them.
But that wouldn't be a BZA action, would it?
No.
No, I wouldn't think so.
Could be in terms of future signage. If somebody came and wanted to put up a new one, that could be a condition that you include, or a compliance with any restrictions in the ordinance regarding lighting during certain hours or whatever, to avoid it being a nuisance.
The council would make the recommendation for the ordinance change.
Right. The council would adopt an amendment to the ordinance that would modify that.
Any action required by BZA for Roger to move forward with his research?
No, and I would think that it probably would be prudent if we've worked with Barb's Church and maybe contact the others and just let them know that
the route
we're
go.
kind of getting some complaints within the city about how bright, and is there some way that they could dim that down or turn it off
You
during
don't-
certain hours.
In the middle of the night, yeah, you don't need that thing.
And chances are, they're going to be more than willing to comply, just like Barb's church did.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I'd handle it, yeah.
Well, don't we have something in our sign ordinance for if they become a nuisance? Can we,
Well,
is there any place that we can classify them as a nuisance and go with?
Well, the problem, I would much rather try to just work with the churches for this reason.
Yeah.
You get into a kind of a sticky wicket when it comes to freedom of religion and First Amendment rights. So when you start restricting that and you're trying to prevent it or limit it, if it's done voluntarily, it's not an issue, and that's what, I would hope we could work out. But that becomes an issue.
Well, it's interesting that all three instances we're discussing are
Our
churches.
Right.
Because I would think retail signage would be
It's a little
Just-
different.
just as much.
Right, and we can certainly say,
and some of the retail signage though, but they're in a retail district where you don't.
it's not in a residential
They're not
district.
in where your churches are all around the residential areas, and that's where it gets to be a little
Right.
bit of an issue.
But if you remember, a few years ago, we had this issue with parking off on the side streets, and that became,
Yeah, that got shut down real
Yeah.
quick.
so you got to be a little bit careful about it.
All right, any additional new business?
One thing that again, this is an issue that the council is going to have to probably address, but it could impact the BZA, and that is the support towers that Mobility wanted to put up. We really don't have a clear definition of what that is in our ordinance, or, the fact that we can require that to come before the BZA in terms of consideration of location of placement and also height, that sort of thing. It's my understanding, talking with Roger, that the Board of Works turned down Mobility's request to use the city right-of-ways to put up these structures. But that doesn't prevent them from going to private property owners and acquiring a lease or acquisition of ground in order for them to put it up on private property. And that is where, the city probably should have some ability to take a look at what they're proposing and make certain requirements or restrictions. We took the position that we already have that right, but it's because the best we have in our ordinance is reference to a radio or TV antenna, which really doesn't fit this very well. So I think we probably ought to consider amending the ordinance to either specifically define that and require that to be something that's subject to allowed by special use exception, in which case then it would come before the BZA. Is that yours? Okay. So,
Wouldn't electromagnetic transmission cover a Wi-Fi the same way it would television or radio?
what we have is an old definition based on old technology,
Okay.
so we probably need to update it, is what I'm saying.
Any height restrictions?
Well, that's, right now, you can restrict the height, but that's something that if council wanted to put in the ordinance, that it would not allow a pole greater than a certain height, they can do that. Doesn't mean that they can't put them up, it's just saying that they can't put it up beyond a certain height. And it seems that a lot of the communities have restricted it at around 50 feet, I think based on some of the information that Ken found in talking with other communities. What that does then is it means that they have to put more poles up. And from what I understand, Mobility hasn't necessarily walked away from Decatur. They're looking at co-locating on I&M poles within the right-of-way.
Are they for sure, or is that?
That's, Roger talked to Mr. Dunn, and he seemed to indicate that they were going to pursue looking into that.
Yeah, that's the avenue they were going to pursue next.
Okay, again, that's an FYI for the board, but
Yeah,
it would be a
because,
council decision.
because in the future, if it's something that they're proposing within the right-of-way of a street, then that goes before the Board of Works. But if it's on private property, we want that to come before the BZA.
And that would be an application to the building department. The building
Yes.
department would review it and then forward it.
Correct. And probably we'd follow the same format by routing it around to the different department heads for their comments too. That's all I have.
Okay.
Need those lightning rods on top of them poles. I just went out and looked at one this afternoon out on Evergreen Lane, 122, got hit by lightning last night at pole.
That makes it exciting for the neighbors.
Street light pole, huh?
So that makes it exciting for the neighbors.
Well, yeah, it split that thing all the way down, it must have popped out about 6 feet above the ground, it had splinters shot clear across the street.
All right, any other new business before the BZA? Sharon, do you have a tentative additional meeting schedule?
Not yet.
Speaking of utility poles, Jeremy Gilbert stopped in my office this morning and said that, you know, how we have an asset management plan there for our streets now, where our streets are kind of numbered according to their condition and for repair, etc. He said that he is going to organize doing the same thing for all the utility poles that the city owns. He said there, back in Fred's administration, Roger, maybe you can help me, that we were replacing old poles so many a year.
We did about 6 or 8 a year for about 10 years, and then we pretty well got caught up with the bad ones.
And haven't done any in several years.
Yeah, and it's probably been,
So he's going to get some kind of, they're going to map them on GIS, where all the ones are that are owned by the city, their condition, and then maybe set up a plan going forward for...
yeah, there'll be a few this year, I've already notified Rory to pick a half a dozen.
Just an FYI.
Yeah, just something, and it's a good idea, because they need checked. I mean,
Right.
there's plenty of them around, the only thing holding them up is the wire.
Yeah, it becomes a liability issue.
And you can walk up to them and take a screwdriver just at the bottom and just push the screwdriver in 6 inches, that thing's rotten. There ain't much holding it together.
All right.
The semi hit that pole at Community Pass and Stratton, and then drug the lines behind it for a ways, okay? Well, in doing that, it affected all the wires at all the poles throughout Stratton. And yesterday, the semi got into Stratton again, turned off the Limberlock onto Stratton Way, and down near Harvester Lane was a column of semi that he actually hit the wires from the vibration or the movement of the poles from the incident back last Thursday. The wires have sagged in that area, so baffles me.
All righty. Not that that's not fascinating, but
Not part of your...
it's not part of the BZA's agenda this evening. And in order to move along, do we have any additional business before the BZA? If not, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned.